And so a trip down the River Spey with Mary and Paul Farrant, twins, Eric Totty, still going strong even now, Don Lucas, Bill Goodman, and Vicky, my little dog, much loved by everybody. We decided to go right up to the start of the river, wherever that was. Wasn't clearly marked on the map, but it's in a sort of bogland. And we kept on nosing about and just trying to see where exactly it started. Some little lochans on the way up as we walked, with Paul misreading the map the wrong way up. A pretty wet search. Fortunately, although it was overcast, it wasn't sunny, but it wasn't cold or miserable, so we were reasonably happy being able, the dog found it eventually, or what we pretended was the real source, coming out of this bogland. Up there in that kind of land, it's a romantic part of the world in a way, because you have wonderful colours of mosses and dead remains of the old forest that was up there, pine forest. You'll see a little later on, you'll see some of the trees of that pine forest. The well-trod path on General Wade's road, which is the road that he got to Fort William on. There's Eric Totty's old Talbot car, and my car, my Ford Zephyr, with the little caravan behind, which is an absolute miracle. It was quite comfortable and nice and warm and dry, and followed behind the car at any speed you like to drive. I think that's Eric Totty's car. More herds of sheep everywhere up there. It was a lovely little caravan. Slept two, went like a bird, followed me whatever speed I was driving at, precisely, always. I sold it eventually because I had to buy a trailer for canoes and kayaks and things. And in actual fact, I've now started to rebuild what I can remember of it for a caravan of my own. You see how you lifted the lid, and then you could stand inside quite comfortably at the back end of it. And so to the place where we could start canoeing. Assembling our folding canoes, those are the only ones we had in those days. And in fact, I think these modern canoes have rather spoilt the art of canoeing, because we just couldn't hit anything in these folding canoes. They were rubber-hulled and canvas decks, and if you hit anything, you got a puncture and sank. So you didn't hit anything. River, not very big right up here, but certainly moving fast. Cairngorm Mountains in the background there, with the snow in one or two patches. No difficult rapids on it, only one at Knockandoo, which comes on, you'll see it. Lots of small lochs on the way down. Loch Inch was the first. And the birds on the foreshore, birds didn't take any notice of us. Here is Loch Inch. Not a very big loch, pleasant, weeds and reeds to go exploring in if you wanted to. Back into the river again. Eric Totty taking Vicky down on the foredeck of his cockpit. Merganser ducklings, I should think. That's a guess there. And Aviemore, where we were going to go for a walk up into the Cairngorm Mountains. A little bit of a struggle to find somewhere where we could leave the canoes overnight, because the natives were frightened that their landlords, finding the canoes there, would be very angry with them. We camped at the National Mountain Centre up there, Benmore Lodge, and then walked up the path into the mountains, through the primeval forest, taking occasional drinks off the nice streams that were running lovely and clean, to Jean's hut, which was a rescue hut put up there and is now used, I believe, as a sort of centre for the skiers and people. Field of moss like this, which was lovely colours. And Loch Arn, by the way, not Avon, which is the beginning of the River Arn, which is a more difficult river, joining the Spey as a tributary. Down beside Loch Arn to look for the shelter stone where we knew we could sleep underneath overnight to keep ourselves dry should it rain. It had a visitor's book, which we duly signed. And the only other snag with the place was we were thoroughly bitten up by fleas. The Lerigrew is a cut between the Cairngorms and the Grampians, if you like. And then the Grampians, there's Loch Arn in the distance as we climb up onto the plateau, with Ben Macdui to the south of us and Cairngorm itself behind us, patches of snow. And then we start off down into this Lerigrew. Not awfully easy walking down through the Skye and the very steep slope, and it was interesting to note that Mary had great difficulty in going downhill. I've noticed this with women quite often. It really was hard work for her. And the path at the bottom. Here's Vicky catching us up. It's a wonderful walk, actually, to start from Aviemore and go right through to the River Tay, at the other end of it, so to speak. This primeval forest, these used to cover all Scotland, and now there's only a small patch of it left in this part of the world. The rest of it has all been destroyed one way or another. There's my caravan again, little tents, because my caravan only slept 2 people. And on down the river. Flowers, dog roses, birds, the lot to watch. Vicky comfortably on the foredeck again. She rode there perfectly happily until we struck a rapid or two that was a bit wet, and she got her face wet, and she didn't enjoy that at all. Various birds. I don't know what they are, I can't see them, they're too distant. That's a Merganser with her chicks, which dive. So suddenly there they aren't. It's an astonishing sight. The little chicks have difficulty, but they do dive. And swans, of course, inevitably everywhere. Lovely birds. The mountains always in the background and the wonderful views around you. Grantown on Spey, another rapid, no great difficulty. Nice, easy paddling. The current of the river was taking us all the time. An angler's hut, probably drizzling then when we did that. Well, having had lunch, we got into the canoes again, and ahead of us was this famous rapid, the Knockandoo Rapid. Here it is, grade 2. Not much more under the water condition that we met it. Fairly heavy water, but not enough to make it any difficulty. Rocks to dodge, of course, and we had to dodge them. We couldn't ride over them roughshod. Here we are again, and you might like to notice Paul Farrant's canoe, which has a funny bow and stern. They were flat instead of vertical. We called it the platypus because of the reason of the shape of the bow and stern. One place we met an angler, or rather we saw him on ahead, and we decided we'd stop and have lunch. And then the Gillie came towards us, and we wondered what sort of a temper we were going to meet, told we weren't allowed and this kind of thing because the river hadn't been proved to be a navigation then. Instead of which the Gillie said, the laird would like you to join him for your lunch. All the time it's a sort of romantic trip, absolutely marvellous going down like this. Bill Goodman coming towards us there. He became an international paddler and married another girl called Heather Meakin. Eric Totty, of course, was a tourist all his life. Paul became a world champion paddler with a gold medal at Geneva in 1959. The girl, Mary Farrant, who married another prominent international paddler, did singularly well in Tatsen, Ljubljana, that's Yugoslavia, Slovenia now. Funny, most of the party became international paddlers in the end. River sort of cuts into the river bank, and this results in shingle banks where the birds can settle and don't take any notice of us, and little cliffs beside the river. I still haven't spotted very clearly, oh yes, no, gone again, Paul's peculiar canoe. It was designed by Bill Halsman. He thought the perfect arithmetical curve was the right shape, but he found he could never join the two together, so the boat was much longer than any of the others. It never did singularly well. It was a bright idea. It's always worth trying bright ideas, isn't it? Nice, easy paddling. The current of the river was taking us all the time. We wandered off to Huntly here and went up and saw a distillery just outside Huntly, where I had some friends, and they showed us how it all worked. Very interesting it was, and then we sampled the stuff. Examining all the machinery, that had a worm in it. That's a wonderful word, isn't it? It's a coiled pipe. It puts the heat into the stuff and cools it down again. Rapids got more of a muchness after that. They were always shingle banks pushing the river into one corner, or just wide expanses. And the scenery had gone flat, no more mountains, all rather dull. Nevertheless, a difference, and here we were to the sea at Spey Bay and our very windy camp. And the river sort of winding its way down into the ocean. Those curious buildings there were the smoke buildings for making kippers, now no longer used. They have other methods nowadays, which speeds it all up. Oh dear, this business about being in a hurry. And Vicky departing into the bow of the canoe to say goodbye.
This is the story of a party of expert canoeists, one of them a world champion, who, for the fun of it, decided some few years ago to explore the valleys of the River Dochart and the Tay from Crianlarich to the great city of Perth in Scotland. They found there quiet wee streams where they could float the canoes they loved, so narrow they barely could paddle away. With a surface like glass reflecting the trees above, they cut their reflections as they went on their way. Dark glades, light glades, bright flowers that were growing there, bushes and trees, the skies through the leaves, visions of things that they ne'er dreamed existed here, new views of creation they could not believe. But one tree has tumbled and blocked off the route. Dodge the hanging boughs, duck under the trunk, and hope that you mayn't find broken sharp bits of wood just under the surface to make your boat sink. The stream's flowing faster now. You drift along with it. Each corner reveals new wonders to you, winding and twisting as spells woven over it, and it forms little lakes to expand on the view. Smoothly you pass along, gazing all round you. Slowly you drift along, thoughts far away. All is so quiet now, peace has a hold on you, sending the bustling old world on its way. But now your stream's hurrying, pressing on to the sea, and you must awake to guide your canoe. The passage is clear as you steer your way down the V. The little waves bounce you as you work your way through. Once more it is smooth again. With the current you drift along, idly paddling your way down the stream. Gently you float, and gently you drift along, slowly descending towards the great sea. Find a cool place to pitch your small tent, fairly flat for the halt overnight. Here's a spot that heaven has sent. And we can eat supper with a good appetite. Away in the morning, the stream's running well. It's a pity it's raining, but not to despair. With moderate luck, the river will swell and speed us along in the good morning air. But now there's a thundering roar on ahead of you, warning of rapids that aren't to be shot. Scramble ashore then, let's try for a better view. Safe on the bank, that view can be got. Which way is the passage? How can we shoot through it? I fear that a route isn't clear from the road. Each passage is fouled by the rocks that bestrew it. We must portage around and get in down below. Now there's a lake some miles from end to end, wide open waters to travel along. But its surface is smooth, with only a gentle wind, and you paddle on, in your head a gay song. Rhythmic the time of the song in your mind, rhythmic the beat of the blade by your side. Speed's not discernible as you go, with the wind smoothly transporting you over the tide. Then the wind rises up, stronger and stronger, creating great catspaws that wax and then wane. Waves are now rising up, longer and longer, urging you on to the river again. Gloriously buoyant your canoe now behaves, rising and falling with the rhythm of springs. Gloriously you ride on the crests of the waves, and you are sped on as though you had wings. Once more in the river, now wider and deeper, smoothly and swiftly flowing on to the seas. Raft up with your fellows, make fast to each other. Go with the strong current, just drifting at ease. Birds all around us, birds from the seas, sailing and hovering, diving for fish. Big birds, little birds, birds ill at ease. Nests, eggs, and chicks. What more could you wish? But here are some whirlpools, dangerously strong. We must inspect to make sure of our course, for we would be lost if we went a bit wrong. But we can, with some care, ride the water's great force. Carefully down the head of the race, and into the cauldron you head your canoe. It rises and falls. Tries to turn at the base. It settles and steadies, and you have got through. Idly chatting as you're drifting along, wonderful flowers that abound on the side. Playing around where the current is strong. Climbing up. Spinning round. See how everyone's tried. Among rocks and the currents there are thrills to be found. What matter the risk if it's not very great? We'll play here a while. And then pass along down, through bridges, and woodlands, what a glorious state! Smooth flowing waters, and rapids to shoot. Wide open spaces, narrow ones too. People of all sorts, even the company's good. Blades, croys and weirs, the lot's there for you. But here is a weir. Let's have a look at it. Can we shoot it? I doubt it. We must portage again. This one is simple. We'll not be held long at it. Then get in below and move off again. But ahead are more rapids. Break up, line astern. I see the passage. Away to the right the V's face away from us. It's easy to learn. Not too close now, but keep me in sight. Bigger rapids, heavier waters, they're really exciting. Waves that are breaking right over your boat. The water's so cold it almost is biting. Working hard, you just keep afloat. Oh Lord, there's a rock directly in front of you. Put on the brakes, ferry glides to avoid it, moving over to where there's a clear passage through with a flick of your stern, and you pass by beside it. Rising and falling, you pound on your way. You dive into eddies to gain a short rest. On again, exhilarating play. Exciting, enthusing, a strenuous test. This is canoeing, all this is the sport. Let each of us find it, each one in his place. Peace or excitement, what matters the sort? This is canoeing. Ye gods, what a choice! Lost the great city, the end of the run. Canoeing's the game. Canoeing is fun.
This was the first of the long journeys that I did by canoe. This one in 1946, right at the end of the war. Here I and my brother are discussing the story afterwards. Nothing like maps to know exactly where you went. Calum Gillies was a man of Skye. He had 3 languages: Gaelic, German, which is where he went to university, and English as a sort of afterthought third. All the canoes were of the folding variety, and most of the trip it rained. The people of the village of Teinalt had instituted a ceilidh to greet their soldiers back from the war, and we were invited to join them. It went on all night and was an absolute wonderful party. I asked Calum to write a letter to me about describing these various things, so here they are. It sounds appalling, but in fact it was one of the most glorious moments that I can remember anywhere in the canoeing world, is starting off at dawn. As the dawn comes in and the birds start to sing, something absolutely marvellous. Loch Etif, a little island near the estuary, the mouth of the loch with Loch Linnhe, where birds nested abundantly. And when we came round, some of them went up into the air, others just stayed put on their nests. Little common gull trying to get out of its shell. The little ducks. I shouldn't have put my hand there. I didn't know any better in those days. And certainly I shouldn't have picked them up like that. I should have left them alone. Certainly you can pass through and the birds will ignore you. Or they'll bomb you perhaps, but that's all. Here they are fishing. Wonderful. No Merganser here, but plenty later on. And Eider duck. and finally, of course, the best of the lot. See how much notice they take? They just watch and are careful. Falls of Laura are a tidal rapid, if you like, under Connell Bridge. And actually, you go the way the water is flowing. So here on the ebb, by the look of it, the neap tides, because on springs it gets very rough indeed, and we charge through, getting the fast current to help us. I did it on springs because I had been up there a week before at Connell Ferry, and certainly it was very difficult then, or I thought so at that time. And here we join the bigger loch of Loch Linnhe with the Oban to the south, and the Apid Rock, which is a plug, a volcanic plug of granite, which was pushed up out of the land when the whole area was in a volcanic condition. Dog tired, you remember? We hadn't had any sleep that previous night, and here we all are, quite worn out, and having a rest in the canoe before coming ashore to prepare our camp. See the tidal limits here, which goes right up to Fort William, of course, and is still tidal. A reasonable start, and then down came the weather. Fortunately, the tide was with us, and the wind was with us, so we floated on up Loch Linnhe, past Ballachulish and all its haunted history. The tide and the wind, of course, were running up the channel, and this left the sea flat. It was just as well neither of them were running in the opposite direction, because it would have made the water very rough. And at the Narrows at Calum, we come to the lighthouse where we can camp just outside before going on up the rest of Loch Linnhe. Fast rip through the Narrows at Calum, but then it becomes still tidal. Sometimes it merely was overcast and dull, but it certainly rained. And that is Calum Gillies, the leader of our expedition, who made all the arrangements all the way up. And so to Fort William, and the inevitable small boy. Don't they always turn up when you have canoes? All these canoes were folding canoes. Did I say it earlier? I think I did. Not to worry. And the shops at Fort William, and then camp at Cochas, which is at the beginning of the Caledonian Canal. Ben Nevis in the background, and we decided we'd take a day off and climb up. Raining still, or fine rain most of the time until we got to the top, when we disappeared into the clouds, and then really it came down. And we were soaking wet coming down. On the way down we met a couple of Scots, man and a girl. They said showery, and we wondered what on earth would happen if they said rainy, because it really was a wet day. Our camp at Corpus. Still raining, put the camera out of focus apparently, not to worry. And now the Caledonian Canal. Now let's see whom we can recognize. Elizabeth Usherwood in the foreground there. And the other side, the ball, oh, that huge ship is merely an RAF rescue launch, no more. Looks like that when you're down in a little canoe beside it. Difficult getting afloat past a lock or what have you, because of course these canvas-covered canoes could not be rushed down over the rocks, merely drill holes in them, which is definitely, we had to miss all that kind of thing out. and now we're in Loch Allochie. Friends get kindly and friendly up there, cooking some fish which were given us. Noel McNaught there putting a fish on the hub. He was a lone canoeist. He wrote a good many books, didn't he? He lost his life finally canoeing all by himself round the south coast of the peninsula in South Wales. This is into the little loch of Loch Oich, and some dwelling there and an old castle. Inver means a river mouth, and Castle Garry at the mouth of the River Garry. And then on down the ladder of lochs, much more easily done on the towpath, if you like, by the canal, by putting your canoe on wheels and trundling them down, and so into Loch Ness at last, and away. The Morriston River was quite a little torrent, and we enjoyed, for the first time in my life, playing about in the white water, wild water, at the bottom of the rapids. It was great fun. And what is canoeing about but fun? We thought we were being terrifically brave in those days. This is a little side stream, isn't it beautiful? Bit of sun for a change here. This is where the Loch Ness Monster is supposed to appear at intervals. I've never met anybody who actually has seen it, but it's a good legend. It certainly adds to the tourist trade. That's Noel McNaught and his girlfriend with his wheels on the back of the canoe. It's one way of coping with the situation. And a rather difficult landing with an onshore wind, which didn't make it either easy to land or to take off again. Calum, Gillies and Elizabeth ploughing on ahead. And back to another thrill in the canoeing world, shooting weirs. We thought we were going to get the bottoms of our canoes scraped away here, but it was lucky there was enough water. We were all right. Don't know what happened with Calum. He got a bit skew-whiff. It's a very tricky position. Elwyn made a mistake and came down backwards. I don't know what he did. Of course, in those days, we had to carry everything by canoe. All our food, there was still a bit of rationing, I think, as far as I remember. All our food and all our clothing for the whole fortnight on the water. There's Noel McNaught again. Do you see the wheels on the back of the canoe and half his load there as well? Me and my companion shooting the weir. Left it to him to paddle. Elwyn doing marvellously, so I got him to do it again, much to his fury. Now, with plenty of time in hand, we just drift on down to Inverness. This will give you some idea of what a canoe can carry. If you look beside my canoe, it was estimated that I was carrying 1/4 ton of stuff in my canoe. Taking them all to bits, packing them up, putting them in their cases, dumping them on a lorry. to go on down to the railway station, 1946. And here is what Calum, in his beautiful English, wrote about this marvellous trip. Having told my brother all about it, I then was left with just my own thoughts. And as I did so, I thought of that wonderful poem by Sir Walter Scott.